It is 8 o'clock, and so I would like to call the February 8th Whatcom County Public Utility District Commission regular meeting to order. And the first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I believe that will be Steve.
Yes, I will. I'll do that. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Steve. The next item is the approval of the agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda? Okay. Doesn't look like we have any proposed changes, so I'm going to move on to the consent agenda. And that is going to be the approval of the meeting minutes from the regular meeting of January 25th, 2022, and the approval of claims for February 8th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as it reads.
Okay.
Steve, something?
Yeah, I had a hand up.
I just, we should probably just have somebody make a motion to approve the agenda as it stands.
Don Sitkin, after the last meeting, told me that we don't need a motion to approve the agenda.
Oh, okay.
We only need a motion if we're going to amend it in any way. That's what he told me. Peter?
Well, my advice is if you can act on unanimous consent and you can interpret what just occurred as consent. So I think the record is pretty clear at this point, if no one objects to moving on.
Okay.
I'll second Mike's motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. I had two minor changes to the notes, and I just read the notes last night and sent them to Anne. So she wasn't able to send them around to the rest of you, but they were very minor just in terms of my wording. What?
Yeah, I had a minor change too. And
okay, so should we just get those to Anne and then approve them at our next meeting then?
My suggestion is if they're minor, that you make the corrections today and then consider approval.
Okay. Do you, Commissioner Murphy?
To begin with, let me withdraw my motion to approve the consent agenda, and then I'll let the two of you talk about your changes, and then we can, if you wish, make a motion on the changes.
Sure, yeah, my change I can just get real quick. It was just a close quote under my commissioner comments. Under the Snake River, the statement from Wapouta, which was the Snake River dams are critical to the economic well-being of the state of Washington. There should just be an end quote at the end of that open quote.
I did correct that.
Okay. That was
but
my
I did not correct the minutes according to Christine's changes because they came in late last night.
okay.
Okay, and so with mine, it was around electrification. It said there are areas she disagrees with regarding electrification, load shaping, and resource adequacy, and concerns about rolling blackouts. And I wanted to change that with Grant is not in agreement with Wapouta's opposed rating on two building electrification bills. And then it's fine to keep it with she shared these concerns with Wapouta. But then I just wanted to say that, and this is what I said in the meeting, that the most notable concern being that we cannot meet our carbon reduction targets without electrifying building stock, and also that load shaping electrification done with demand response is good economics for electric utilities. And then we can keep the part about suggesting sending a letter to the PUD commission. But I just wanted to explain, and I think I did in the meeting, why I'm was opposed to the bill ratings. And then the only other one was also related to the point about the Cascadia Daily, and I wanted to say that I think it's important to look for more ways to engage and educate the public about the work the PUD is doing, which is which is why I think we should be getting a story out about the PUD's new general manager. So the wording on it was just a little bit odd. And I suggested that change to Ann. So those were my two changes.
With that, Commissioner Murphy, if you want to reintroduce the motion to approve as with the corrections.
Yes, thank you, Steve. I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the added changes from Altu and Christine. Yeah, I guess that's it right there.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did I get a mic? Mike, did I hear an aye?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a really exciting one that we've been waiting for several months. And that is the introduction of the PUD's new general manager, Chris Heimgartner. And so a very warm welcome on behalf of the commission and staff and community to you, Chris. Chris is somebody with multiple decades of utility experience from California to Washington, and most recently was in Kentucky working with an electric cooperative there. And he very bravely just moved his family across the country in the middle of a pandemic and relocated here to Whatcom County. So we're just really grateful to have you here, Chris. And as we've said before, you know, we're really impressed by your renewable energy development experience and your experience building a broadband utility at Henderson Electric Cooperative. And so just wanted to open the floor to you, Chris, to say anything to the public about, you know, who you are and why you decided to come join us here at the PUD.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. So first of all, I've had an incredibly warm welcome here, both from members of the community and especially from members of the utility and the Utility Commission. So first of all, thank you for that. It's been truly wonderful. Secondly, this opportunity came up and it fulfilled two things for me personally. And you know, one was that it could move me closer to our kids. So in a sense, it was a little bit of coming home. But also the other thing that I look forward to, and I think I'm going to find incredibly fulfilling, is that I think I can really help here. And you're right. I look at things as a utility professional. I've got over 40 years of utility experience, gas, electric, and telecom. And in that whole time, the thing I found the most enjoyable is learning. And right now I am literally drinking from a fire hose, as former general manager Steve could attest. He knows what I'm getting right now. And it's really, it's been a lot of fun. I don't see any end to the learning here, and I look forward to being able to help shape the district's future.
Well, thank you for that introduction, kind of to everyone of who you are, Chris, and we'll get to know you much better over the coming months and years. So again, just a really warm welcome on behalf of the commission. Commissioner Murphy or Deshmani, any additional words before we move on to the next agenda item?
Well, sure. I'd like to make a brief comment. And Chris, you're busy at our last commission meeting, and I just wanted to repeat a comment that I made then, and that how important it is for us to recognize this transition for you. And you know, Steve's tremendous success at the PUD was very much augmented by the support he got from the commission and staff and the community. It's a great example for what speaking for myself, me as a commissioner, but I'm also asking that of everyone here, to give you the support to help climb that learning curve. Not that this is your first rodeo at all. Not implying that even close to it, but just looking forward to support of this, you getting the full warmth and support of this community that and a relationship with the PUD that certainly Steve has fostered, both in other local governments, but also in the community at large, and very much wanting to make sure you feel completely welcome by our community and support of everyone around you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
My turn.
Go ahead, Commissioner Murphy.
Yeah. Mike, you're a bit frozen for me. Are other people able to hear him?
No.
No, okay.
No,
Mike, do you want to try turning your video off? And yeah, there. Oh, Mike, I'm not able to hear you right now.
My guess is he's buffering badly.
Let's see. Mike, do you want to try calling? Oh, he left. Okay. Maybe he can try. I don't know if Mike McComber is on, but maybe we could get a phone number that he could call in on.
Mike McComber is on.
Okay. Mike, is there any way you could give Commissioner Murphy a call and help him out?
Yep.
And then Andrew, we've really got to get going on the broadband in Ferndale, which I know we'll be talking about under the broadband program update. Well, I know that Commissioner Murphy had some things to share with you, Chris. And maybe we can, well, what should we just pause the meeting, or are we comfortable moving on to public comment until we get Commissioner Murphy back on? Commissioner Dashmani, what do you feel? Oh, he's back. Let's see.
Mike Murphy, can you test your, no, we dropped, can you test your microphone, Mike? Doesn't sound or look, oh, no, there he's connecting.
Oh, he's gone again. Okay, I'm gonna suggest that we open our public comment period, just in case it's gonna take a while. I know we've got quite a few people on today, so I do want to open that up, and then we can hear from Mike during his commissioner report. Oh, wait. Mike?
Thank you.
We can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Commissioner Murphy.
Well, first of all, I have to get over this panic when stuff like this happens because I'm not computer friendly. So I'm just going to say, Chris, welcome. I have to say that you're in the best PUD in Washington State, and you got the greatest staff to work with you and for you, and commissioners. So welcome. Hopefully you got that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate it.
All right, well, we're glad we've got you back, Commissioner Murphy. Let's move on to public comment. Anne, could you help facilitate the public comment, please?
Rick Miracle.
Good morning, Rick. Rick, are you muted potentially?
Well, we can move to the next one and come back to Rick.
Okay, that would be
Right.
fine.
I have Billy Tackett.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me on your public comment period. My name is Billy Tackett, and I am with AT&T FirstNet. And I reached out and was suggested that I come to the public comment period to ask to be put on a future agenda to talk to you guys about what FirstNet, which is a federal government program partnership with AT&T, to bring critical communications to first responders and to critical infrastructure such as yourself. We're currently working with other PUDs, including Snohomish County, for their LMR rebuild and also their broadband initiative. And we're also handling in your guys' area, Whatcom County Transportation Authority has moved most of their bus communications and that over to FirstNet as well. And I think it is an opportunity for you guys to explore what we can offer.
Great. Thank you for the comment, Billy. And if you want to send an email to one of the commissioners or the general manager, our email.
Chair, he actually sent an email to all three commissioners.
Oh,
And I responded to him and explained to him the peculiarities of me doing a group response, and that's why I didn't do a group response. And I suggested that he speak at the public comment period. And I think we'd very much like to hear from him about what FirstNet is about, and perhaps we can do a little bit of homework and bring it back as an agenda item, because it's a good solution for first responders potentially, and things like that. Something that we should look at seriously. It's not really a backbone kind of discussion. It's more about getting services out to the critical areas, but it's certainly something that I'm personally interested in, and maybe we
I gotta let the commissioners know we used FirstNet at the last utility I worked at, so I'm pretty familiar with them.
okay. Okay, great. Well, we'll discuss this and figure out how to proceed with getting it on a future agenda potentially.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Bill.
Billy. Rick, do you want to try again to do your comment?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. Anyway, first, I didn't get a chance to attend the last meeting, but I would like to pass along to Steve my congratulations and wishes for all the best in his future endeavors. The second comment, I noted that in the last meeting you had some discussion about the Snake River dams. And one thing about those that I've not heard anybody discuss, but what occurred to me was that those dams would provide a huge amount of storage for shaping of renewable resources, diurnal shaping. I mean, you could store up water during the day and let it out at night to cover the natural variation in, say, solar and even wind. So I've not heard that item discussed in all the discussions I've heard about the Snake River dams, and that I think is something that needs to be brought up and emphasized, that they fit in. We know we have to have storage for renewables. We already have a huge amount of storage there on the Snake River that we could use. Even if you don't do anything besides just ultimately let all the water through on a daily basis.
Thanks for that comment, Rick. That's not something I've thought about and will learn more about.
If I may, Commissioner Grant, so regarding this issue of storage, it's a very important point and an essential service that the hydro system provides. It's important to realize that when we're talking about Snake River dams, in most political discourse, we're talking about the lower Snake River dams, which have the potential of, they're what are called shallow dams. And as a result, they do provide some storage, but it's a few percent of the capacity of the hydro system at the most in the best case. And that best case scenario happens in the spring. And so as a result, although it would be, it certainly is extreme, the role of hydro in storage and balancing other renewables is extremely important. That's not one of the main functions that the lower Snake River dams provide. Go ahead, Chris.
So in a past life, not in the last 5 years, but I dealt with this issue extensively, Rick. And when you look at the entire Columbia River system, of which the Snake is a tributary, a lot of the waters originate in Canada, and a lot of the stuff is set by treaty. But the entire federal system is run first and foremost for flood control, then for environmental resources, then for recreational resources, and lastly on their list is for hydroelectric production. So, well, yes, these dams can be important, and as Commissioner Deshmani pointed out, the lower Snake Rivers have very limited storage. They tend to be run as run of the river for both the flood control and the environmental issues. And then, you know, really the storage for hydroelectric production is the very last thing that the Corps considers when they set flow levels and dam height levels. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and then in subsequent conversation with the executive director of WPUDA, what really is happening is that there's a kind of a slippery slope type of concern that lack of support for the lower Snake River dams triggers lack of support for the entire hydro system. And that's why there's some differences of opinion at WPUDA. Some people like slippery slope arguments, some people don't feel comfortable making them. I would be in the don't feel comfortable making them. Because in life, you can't do a lot if you're always worried about the slippery slope.
Well, thank you, Rick and Atul and Chris. Let's move on to our next public commenter. Anne, do you want to help?
Tristan Smith.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, hear you.
Awesome. Good morning. Welcome to Bellingham, Chris. So I'm a community member. I've been concerned about climate change for a long time, but I was still kind of disconcerted by the last year with the heat dome and the flooding and the fires on the West Coast. One of the things I've been really curious about is there's lots of things that sort of individuals or families can do kind of at their own household level. And then there's a lot going on where our city or state or national level are trying to take action. I'm wondering if there's a gap in between where their neighborhoods or local areas, it's harder to figure out, like if I wanted to get together with my neighborhood association and take action and harness a lot of the concern people have, how could we do that? And I've had conversations with a bunch of different organizations, and just to throw out one example, I don't know if it's a good one or not, but if I wanted to purchase a solar panel and say, okay, school board gets that energy during the summer, the money generated from that solar panel goes back to me or goes towards future panels. A conversation with the school district, for them, it was hard to pencil out solar panels because they don't get the same incentives that people like me, like individuals do in terms of getting a good payback for energy they're not using. So my question or challenge for all of you is are there ways that you can get together with county, city, port, the school district, and look for ways that you can harness people like me or my neighbors who really want to do something above and beyond what they're doing at their own house level, and help us move forward quickly? So it's more a challenge than a question, I think.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
So specifically on this subject, Tristan, a lot of what we have talked about over the last couple of years has been trying to figure out how to address at least things I've raised. One of the things that is a useful instrument for community projects is what's called the LUD, Local Utility District. And they can be created under the auspices of any of our local governments. Cities do things like that. And a good example of that is what a fire protection district. And then counties do that too, also similar things. And and PUDs could do that too. What that does is it creates an envelope in which inside that you can have a community collectively work to fund through their own taxes capital improvement projects of everything from broadband to community solar. So that's one attempt at answering your question. The other is at the state level, the state representative for the 42nd, Sharon Shoemake, one of our two, is championing a community solar bill. It's still alive, last I checked. It made it past the cutoff. I don't know how healthy it is, but I'm sure she'd love it if you testify at the next upcoming hearing on that bill. And I believe that part of what it's trying to do is make community solar projects easier. But I'm not the only one who knows about this in this group. I'm sure others would like to speak to address your challenge too.
Thank you. Yeah, and those are good pointers, and I will look into those. And yeah, I think the other thing I guess I wanted to say, in addition to the challenges, it feels to me like there's a lot of organizations who care, and it's some of the challenges getting together and brainstorming how all of you can, like the school district, for example, how can you get together with their people trying to do something about sustainability and really find ways that everyone can work together.
Yeah, if the commission's okay with it, I could follow up with Tristan and have some discussions about that.
Yeah, well, Tristan and I spoke a few months ago now, I think, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, Commissioner Deshmani, that, the LUD model is an important tool to look at. And I think in general, so much of this challenge with climate change relates to financing and how do we overcome the upfront costs of the infrastructure that we need to build. And I would love to have more discussions about how the PUD can be a part of those solutions. So I don't know, Chris, do you have anything else to add before we move on to our next comment?
No, I'm fine at this point.
Okay. But yes, Commissioner Deshmani, if you want to follow up with Tristan also, that's great. I think let's just figure out how to keep the conversation going. Okay, I think we have a few more hands up.
Daniel, educational design.
Daniel,
good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thanks for welcoming citizens into the public comment session. And I want to join my voice with others in congratulating Mr. Jilk for his years of service. It seems like this is a pretty vital time of change and renewal at the PUD. And as a citizen who is interested in energy issues and climate issues and broadband issues, I'm pretty excited to see the potential for the port to move into a new phase. So I also want to add my voice of welcome and congratulations to Mr. Heimgartner. I think the port has a bright future, the PUD has a bright future. I'm sure the port has a bright future too, actually. But the potential, I've done a little bit of research around different PUDs around Washington State, and it's really fascinating, the variety of different approaches and different levels of service and different types of service that other PUDs offer. But of all of them, my observation is that our local PUD has the greatest potential for growth because there is so much that it could be doing if it saw fit to do so. And as a concerned citizen, I would love to see the PUD under Mr. Heimgartner and the current commission. I'd love to see more growth in the area of renewable energy, of increased broadband. And I know you're moving in these directions already, but I want you to know that the public is watching and the public is interested, and we're actually quite excited about the potential for the PUD moving into the future. So welcome, Mr. Heimgartner. Thank you all for your service. And Mr. Jilk, I hope you're, whenever your retirement does happen, it sounds like you're going to stay on for a while, but I appreciate all of your work, and I look forward to seeing great things come out of the PUD down the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment, Daniel.
I've known Daniel for a long time, and Daniel, you're one to talk. You don't know how to retire properly either. So I'm sure Steve will be continuing to contribute in many ways to the community. Daniel's well known for his foundational role in creating Explorations Academy, which has been a real gift to the community, and continues to stay involved with education, although I think your interests have expanded quite a bit in terms of your community involvement. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Atul.
Okay, and do we have any more hands up?
Mike Kaufman.
Hello, Mike.
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
We can.
Very good. My internet falls off randomly, so if I go, I usually come right back. Mike Kaufman here. I'd like to introduce myself a bit. I'm one of the authors and try to maintain myself a bit as the overseer of the utility chapter of the comprehensive plan. It was 30 years ago about that we started organizing that under electric issues at the time. And I wanted to make the I'll get my thoughts together here. In the early 2000s, we worked on gas line and gas maps and issues. And in there, we put a paragraph, a policy 5M-2 or something, talks about franchise agreements. And the county council is currently working on a 25-year franchise agreement that came up for Cascade.
Mike, we can't hear you.
There he is. He's back.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, real good. So I'll try and
We
make
lost
this
you at Cascade.
under the Cascade franchise agreement that I sent a letter to the county council, and I would kind of like to broker a deal where the county council could possibly move form a committee and let the Whatcom PUD run it to address franchise agreements as it's stated in the comprehensive plan. And also, I view the utility chapter as a platform from which to engage all of these issues that we're talking about. In there, there's no mention of the internet whatsoever. And so an idea of upgrading our comprehensive plan, as we did with electric issues and gas issues, and now other utility issues, communications, internet, and to me, through the years, has been a platform of which I can talk from. So it's a legal document. It has strength, I believe, if we give it strength as a community, as activism. And I think it's an excellent place for the PUD to do this, because you do deal with these very issues: energy, utilities of internet, water issues, which is also part of that utility chapter of the comprehensive plan. So if I could help, I think it would be a great help to the county council for the PUD to step forward, and maybe you can engage some of the council members and talk with them about it. And if that ends up working out, form a committee, and let's start as a community at the new day with the PUD to move this, to move that document forward. And maybe it's a way, as you talked earlier, Commissioner Grant, about engaging the community. How do we engage the community? Okay, we have this document. Let's go into the community with it and ask for input and work with the community and make it. At the time when we first wrote it in the early
Mike, you're cutting out a little. Looks like you're muted now, Mike.
I think we lost him.
Okay. Well,
Oh, there,
is he?
he's on, but
Okay. Mike, I don't know if you can hear us, but if you have a few final words to share and you're able to share them, please go ahead. Otherwise, we're going to move on to our next commenter. Okay. Unfortunately, we can't hear you, Mike. So we are going to move on to. Do either of the commissioners have anything to respond to based on what we've heard from Mike?
No, but I know Mike, and I can follow up to make sure there's nothing else. You can put it in writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, what he said was very big.
Yeah.
Not to in any way minimize it, but it was a very big topic. So.
Great. Mike, we'd love to hear more from you in writing if you can hear us. And do we have any other commenters that would like to speak?
That's everybody.
That's everybody? Okay, great. Well, thank you to everybody that made a comment. We are now going to close this public comment period. We do have another public comment period at the very end of our meetings, just so people are aware. But we will move on to old business. And the first item under old business is the broadband program update. And so who's that going to be?
that'll be Mr. Andrew. Andrew, you're muted right now. There you go.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Steve, Chris, it's good to be here. A brief update today. There's a lot going on, but I'll try to be brief. Some exciting things happening at the legislature, some bills moving through, specifically 5717, which is the changing of the definition of broadband from 25.3 to 100 down, 20 up, which is really exciting. It opens up a whole bunch of opportunity to help unserved and underserved areas in our community for better broadband improvement. So really exciting to see that move forward. And then the other one is the 16773. And there's a substitute bill to that one as well. And that's concerning broadband infrastructure loans and grants made by the Public Works Board. And in that substitute bill, it also includes a pre-application process for resolving issues between applicants and existing internet service providers, which I believe is a really good, important tool to have it in the process, which also does align with the state broadband office. So tracking these bills, really exciting stuff. At the federal level, the NTIA, or the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, is hosting a pre-NOFA, or Notice of Funding opportunity, for the $1 billion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So they're having these webinars beginning in March, which will go through May, on technical assistance webinars for the 5 different major funding pots under that Jobs Act. So we'll be following that and bringing more information as we get it back to all of you. which also is, I think, really exciting. Lots of dollars coming down the pipe for broadband. And we're going to be ready to apply and access those dollars for our community. A little closer to home, we've already brought in significant dollars, the port has, and just over $10 million in broadband infrastructure funding has been pumped into our community. And so we'll be working to get those project areas built in a timely fashion. And the port and the PUD are working together on a joint press release announcing that exciting news. And then staff is working on rolling up those project areas and how we tie them all together, and looking at what we're doing in the future, identifying areas and rolling all that up into a strategic plan document that we can use for presentations like here and at the county and our other various stakeholders and with the community. So lots of moving pieces, lots more coming. That's my report. Back to you.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Commissioners, do either of you have any questions for Andrew?
I do.
Hi, Andrew, are you going to get back to me by email on those two projects, the one that we talked about, 2 out of the 4 we talked about? So I'll just briefly mention, I had a meeting with Andrew last week. We talked about 4 projects, one out in Blaine, one out in the Van Zant area, one off of Smith Road and one off of Y Road in the county. And was really excited, if I can summarize, on the one out by Blaine, because it fit into a hole that had not been grabbed by the telecoms under the RDOF program. Unfortunately, the one out in Van Zant has fallen into a planned pitch by Ziply for providing extended service. And then I think you've got more studying to do on the one off of Smith Road and the one off of Y Road, or do you have any info yet for me to share with those project proponents yet?
Sure, let me get back to you via email, or we can have another Zoom call.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to get those areas listed and identified on a map, and an ongoing mapping program that we can identify project areas so we don't lose those as we move through planning and grants and so on and so forth. So really incredible to see the good work that you've done, boots on the ground level, and identifying these project areas. Now we just got to wrap those up into the plan, so to speak. But what I want to do, I think, is put them on a map, and so we can look at them and identify those in future projects as they come along, because I'm sure there'll be many more areas that we can look at as well.
Yeah, and just to share with the other commissioners, the approach that I'm taking is to identify neighborhoods, communities who are willing to rally together to improve their neighborhood service. I currently believe that that's easier to do in rural Whatcom than it is in the city of Bellingham, and the reason is because the lack of service is more acute there. But there may be cases in the city. No, I'm sure there's cases in the city where there's a building that has, or a neighborhood that has terrible service. What happens is when you've got a group of neighbors who want to do something, it makes it a lot easier to make progress for that community, because you're not inquiring whether there's market interest. The market's coming to you and telling you they want you to serve them. And so whether our role is in the area of dedicating our desire to support that and turning into a private sector initiative, or us actually serving them, it doesn't matter. It's ultimately we're interested in getting, well, it does matter, but ultimately these are people who are struggling because of lack of connectivity, and any progress is progress. Anyway, I just wanted to share that what I'm planning to do is regularly identify new, based on the connections that I have or opportunities that I have, to identify new neighborhoods which need support. And I'm lucky. I bought my house because I knew that I couldn't run my business that I was planning to start without Comcast. And so I just bought a house where I knew I would have Comcast cable. That was 20 years ago. But of course, there's lots of people whose circumstances are changing and where they need that kind of connectivity and they don't have it. Kids grow up in 20 years. A lot happens in 20 years that changes what you need as far as a level of support and connectivity.
Well, I wanted to just say, I'm really interested in connecting these, and I know Commissioner Deshmani that you've been, working with, I think you've been calling them like the local loops groups, but I think that that's wonderful. Obviously, we can't all go to the same meetings because of the public open meetings thing. So I really appreciate you being kind of the carrying the flag with those groups, and would love to figure out how we can support and how we can make it a model that's replicable to other people that maybe are not in that same network of people that,
So I have an idea about that. I mean, like,
yeah,
generally the three of us commissioners don't spend time being turfish with each other. But in this case, it might actually be beneficial for us to just say that we shepherd projects in our respective geographic district boundaries. And that might be a way to avoid us both showing up to the same meeting, because we three commissioners have distinct districts. And so
that's
that might
a great idea. If you are connected with someone that is in my district, I would certainly love to be in touch with them.
Well, yeah, okay. Maybe we can sleep on this, but maybe this is something we can formalize and create 3 local loops groups, if you know what I mean, where we're all working within our districts to create, to identify, communities that want improved connectivity and willing to band together to achieve it.
Well, why don't we, I think, why don't we kind of hear back from, I know Andrew's real busy trying to figure out how to build $10 million of broadband projects right now. But I think this is really important too. And so Andrew, I mean, I would love to hear from you kind of on what next steps we could do as a PUD to help these groups. And it sounds like you and Commissioner Deshmani are already talking about that. So let's kind of keep this thread going in our broadband program updates. Does that seem like a good next step? And Commissioner Murphy, I know you have something to say, and it is your turn to speak.
Thank you. As we move into these different directions and we've been involved in the past, I'm a firm believer in strategic planning, because if we have too many items, too many balls, if I can call them, thrown at us, we can't juggle them all. And we're going to drop some and we're not going to give the attention some of them need. I really would strongly recommend that we get together, led by Chris and then Andrew and others, in a strategic plan and say, let's make this our goal and start setting some real strong goals. As well as I like what O'Toole and others are saying, we got to get the community involved, and neighborhoods are great ideas and to achieve. Otherwise, I can't see us achieving what we really want to. And as the other 2 of you have probably experienced, sometimes there's those moments that just feels like you can't get anything done. You spin your wheels, you try so hard. And I think it's because we just take on too many things and we need to come together on issues. I don't know if you agree with me. If you don't, please tell me what I'm missing.
Commissioner,
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, and I think we need to have some kind of a PUD summit, right? To do what you're on the subject of broadband, perhaps dedicated, but that's to be scheduled.
well, and if I may, I think that's part of why we're engaging Jim Darling, is to try to, because I mean, this commission has no lack of good ideas. It's just getting us all, without prioritization, I agree, is essential. So Steve, did you have something to say?
Just that, Commissioner, is that Jim has Jim Darling's been given the go-ahead to start the process of interviewing commissioners, and Chris and some of the staff in the first step of, I'll call it reinvigorating your positions on the initiatives. And that's the next step. He's been given the go-ahead, and I think he's probably going to start that next week. This last week, Chris Heimgartner and myself had a brief discussion with Jim about that process, and I think that's going to really bring some a greater focus on just what your priorities are, and it'll help you and Chris Heimgartner get things established for the 2023 budget, but also looking at the 2022 budget. What's in there now and what you can move ahead on. So.
Great. Well.
So I just want to clarify, make sure that Commissioner Murphy is you asked for feedback, and I think the point you made is absolutely right. And I think what Commissioner Grandis is suggesting is that the way we address that is through the strategic planning process. And then there was the one specific short-term measure we talked about regarding districts and neighborhood activity. I have no opinion one way or the other, but are we suggesting then that we put that kind of subject in the strategic, we make sure to include that in the strategic planning discussions session we have with Jim? Is that what we're saying?
I think that would be fine. Or Steve, you've got your hand up. Why don't you speak first?
Well, I think in the strategic plan as it sits right now, there is discussion about communication out into the community, education, and getting community input. And it's been put on hold, but we talked about updating our whole logo and building a much more active communication system for taking public input, public comments, not just at meetings, but otherwise. I think that could be the basis for that discussion as you go forward, and it certainly could be part of the strategic plan. I think that it's going to be important that as you move forward with that concept, that that you engage very effectively with Chris Heimgartner and how he can be part of that communication. Not just the social media part of it, but if you start building this neighborhood district, your individual commissioner district, I think that's a fantastic idea. I just think you just really need to be clear. You need to clarify how you're going to do that communication back and forth so that something doesn't get lost and miscommunication happens. Because once you start that process formally, you want to make sure that the public knows where their comments are going to be taken, who's listening to it, and so forth. So,
Chris.
I want to echo Steve's comments, but from a slightly different perspective. So my recommendation is that the commission continue to focus at the policy level. And in this case, the policy is the district ought to pursue building a telecommunications system. Now, how that telecommunication system gets built has to be done kind of rationally and logically. Communication systems, this is at a very granular level now, they're similar to the airline hub and spoke model. You have to start them in the center and build out. And if you kind of fragment that effort and you try and build little pieces of it out there, what ends up happening is you have to build infrastructure, number one, out of order, and it may not necessarily be as functional as what you would want. Number two, you do run the risk of fixing the squeaky wheel. So you could have a vastly underserved neighborhood that's not loud, and then a neighborhood that is not so vastly underserved that is very loud and very active among the commissioners. And we just have to be careful not to fall into that trap. So I would recommend the commission look at this from a policy level and direct staff then to execute. And part of it is you leave that up to us. But the other thing is you don't want to build unrealistic expectations in parts of the community. You don't want to meet with somebody and then they walk away thinking I'm going to have high-speed broadband next month. And then when the plan comes out and it's going to take 2 or 3 or 4 years to build out to their neighborhood, there'll be some natural frustration and frankly, some blowback. So I would just urge you to think about this from a policy level and keep your focus there. Keep looking 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and staff will get us there one step at a time.
If I may, Commissioner Grant.
Mhm.
So this is a rich and fertile ground for discussion. Firstly, certainly the infrastructure culture is that kind of systemic approach that you just described, Chris. One of the things that we're dealing with is quite honestly substantial pushback from the telecom industry, and persistent and effective push from the telecom industry, and federal government policy that is also making the kind of systematic as improvements to our grid of telecommunications a little bit challenging. For example, much of the funding that's been laid out in the last year or so, and potentially much of the new funding, will be earmarked to last mile connectivity. And because it's very focused on delivering last mile connectivity, it hampers the ability of local governments. Not that in any way I want to abandon that, to build backbone infrastructure. And so one of the ways of getting around that is by starting to develop some near-term success stories, which is all about last mile connectivity with regular people. And there's some analogies to renewables in that area. Deploying some community modest scale renewable projects helps create the inertia and the support from the community to doing more substantial things later. So not in any way disagreeing with what you were saying, but also recognizing that, we're in an imperfect world where we may have to take a more asymmetrical approach to developing infrastructure in Whatcom County.
Thank you, Commissioner Deshmani. I think that it is clear that we need to keep having some discussions about where we're going specifically on broadband from a strategic planning perspective. And it sounds like those conversations will definitely be happening in the next few weeks and months. So if everyone is okay with it, I would like to move on to the next agenda item. Is everyone okay with that, or are there any final comments that need to be made? Okay. Well, Andrew, I appreciate the update, and I know we'll be hearing more at the next meeting. So let's move on to resolution number 815, the adoption of our final comprehensive drinking water system plan. And Dave, I see you there on the screen, so I'm guessing this is you.
I'd like to just open this up, Commissioner, if it's all right with you. I'd just like to, first of all, it probably doesn't, it's not as meaningful to most everybody that's on the call today, except for maybe for Dave, how important today is in terms of getting this water system plan approved. It's actually almost 20 years old, our current one. And for several years, we had put off engaging in approving or getting through the process of approving an update because of what was going on somewhat with the legislature, somewhat with the with some of the challenges coming out of Department of Ecology. But now the last almost a year and a half, I believe, Dave and Kurt Schoenfelter from Wilson Engineering, Tom Mortimer before he vacated our working with us, and all of our staff here have been putting a lot of time into getting the plan update approved. And just yesterday, we actually received the final letter of approval from Department of Health, giving us to go ahead to ask for your approval of the final plan. I can't emphasize enough how Dave and Kurt just stood up and took this whole process on. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Dave. And I don't know if Dave has any comments, but appreciate it, Dave, and go ahead.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. First of all, welcome, Chris. I'm one of those strange people that ran into you figuratively at the intersection of Grandview and Enterprise, waving feverishly, thinking it's Steve in the car, and you're probably wondering who this stranger in a pickup is waving at you as you go down the road. So welcome, best of luck in your first 100 days. I know that's the critical ramp up challenge. So welcome. Commissioners and staff, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for trusting me and basically sending me on this journey, and it's been a privilege. And so I would just say that this has been really key at laying the platform for you as you go forward. I think you have everything you need in there to build on, and it sets the stage where you can draw on this in order to take future steps, whatever they may be, new customers in the industrial area, expanding Grandview. And so what I anticipate will come out of this, and there's been discussions with staff already about, are there policy considerations for how you manage Grandview, new customers, availability of water. And so it set the stage for next pieces, next steps. And I think it also set the stage for the new customers you're considering or that are engaging with you out in the Cherry Point area. So I think it'll serve you well. And so just want to thank you for all of that. And I will tell you that along with the letter of approval, the final steps of closing out this project from our perspective is simply ensuring that Whatcom County accurately reflects the receipt of the document, final approval, and then accurately reflects the service area map on their coordinated water system plan, which is what ties it back to the county, so you don't run into snags in the future. And so I anticipate in the next couple of days, we will close out that project in cooperation with staff and be able to put that file away for you. So thank you.
Commissioners, I don't have anything else to add. And with that, I would just ask for your consideration of approval of resolution number 815.
Yeah, I've reviewed the packet and I'm completely ready to vote for approval, but maybe either we could bring it up after approval or I can mention it now. And I just wanted to understand a little bit more about the implications of an approved drinking water plan. So how would you like to handle that, Commissioner? Should we vote for approval first and have some discussion afterwards, or should I raise this now?
Why don't we have the discussion now and we can vote at the end.
Okay, so and just one thing that you mentioned, Dave, was the impact and the opportunity that it creates for adding additional industrial customers for drinking water. And I assume that's in Grandview and potentially Cherry Point, although not that we know anything that would fall into that envelope, but anywhere on our system, particularly the ones we projected in the drinking water supply plan. I'm wondering what the other potential implications of this drinking water supply plan is, meaning in regards to our protected water rights and other water planning functions of the PUD. where this is an important thing that had to get done first.
If I can, I'll pick a real easy one off this. And in Steve's legacy, he always ends every meeting, let's get stuff done, let's get busy. And so I'll tell you a direct takeaway, and then I'll leave the other ones to Steve to discuss. With the direction of the commissioner's staff and general manager, we've been waiting for a couple of years in Grandview to have this system done, this plan done. Without the plan, you are not eligible to apply for funding of a variety of opportunities. And so a direct implication is that you have two small water systems adjacent or nearby adjacent to Grandview that one is in serious condition with water quantity being available. It's not a water right issue. And the other one is water quality. Arsenic on one half and lack of water on the other half for existing small systems. It was virtually impossible, because funding wasn't available, short of out of pocket from either party, to engage with a State Department of Health funded feasibility study, and subsequent that leading into a consolidation loan whereby you could simply have them as a connection to the Grandview system. And so a direct implication is that now that this is signed as of yesterday, you have the opportunity, should the PUD choose to follow up on that request from those customers, to pursue the feasibility study for grant funding, and then subsequently the feasibility or the consolidation. And so there's other opportunities for that, but those are direct actions, next steps that, if parties were so directed, that we would go down that avenue. So I just wanted to give you a specific impact why this was not possible before the plan was approved. Now I'll let Steve answer the other ones. It's going to be over my pay grade to discuss those.
The other thing that it does clearly, that it sets a much more solid platform for the PUD as we enter into adjudication on our water rights and the use of those water rights. Even though this is a potable water system plan update, which really only covers Grandview system and then our individual well at Praxair. So it doesn't cover our industrial water rights, so to speak, but as we engage in greater opportunities to serve additional customers out at Cherry Point, and the possibility of creating our own potable water system out at Cherry Point, this really puts a solid platform for us to move forward. Now, the other thing that it identifies is the use of our water throughout Whatcom County in our different service areas and how they are defined in the plan. And that is very critical in terms of giving us the ability to move water around to serve other customers and to engage in other potable water system feasibility studies, as Dave has indicated as an example out at Grandview, but it doesn't limit us to Grandview. And so this is critical to get it done now as we proceed and look at other opportunities. So.
Mike.
Yeah, Steve, while you're on that then, because as I was looking at this, and Dave, if you want to join in, how does this work for us when we deliver industrial water, thinking of a customer like Intelco Aluminum, that are taking our industrial water and putting it through their own potable water system? How does this tie into that? Or do we in the future own industrial or customers' potable water, or build our own potable water and not allow others to take our industrial water and turn it into potable?
This Commissioner, I'll try to answer that, and Dave can certainly jump in. He's much more technical capable in answering this probably than I am. But in terms of a customer like Intelco or Phillips 66, they have the authority to run their own Department of Health water system, and they can take our water as a source and then treat it through their treatment system to serve themselves. They can't take our water and supply it to someone else. This does not change that at all. The other thing is that it does give us, like I said earlier, a platform for if we look at all of Cherry Point, say in 6 months, and get a request or several requests for us to provide potable water directly, it gives us the ability to build a potable water treatment plant out at Cherry Point and serve those customers. So it really opens up the door. It doesn't limit us at all, and it doesn't force us into serving a customer like Phillips 66 or Intelco with potable water. We did actually run Intelco's potable water system plant, their little treatment plant, for a while, and then backed away from it because at the time there was not a willingness for them to upgrade that plant, and we didn't want to retain the liability around it.
And I think I would add to that in direct response to Atul's question earlier. It feels like it took a long time to do a relatively simple plan, but really what was going on in the background, and I just appreciate Steve allowing me to go in the weeds so many times with our discussions between Steve and I. A really good example is that the foundation allows you what we'll call the first right of refusal under state law to engage in water, potable water, distribution and treatment in the areas that you've identified. And it allows for you as a utility to orderly work through the water in that area. Grandview is a little easier because you have more infrastructure there, but it allows you to work through the planning process in the future for the area you have identified as Cherry Point. And so a really good example is you have had no recent customers request service. And so neither them, the unknown customer, nor yourself has had to wrestle with the capital challenge of potable water. But your infrastructure of the source of water creates that future business opportunity. All of the future potential is there, but there hasn't been a need for investment in capital. And where that need does show up, a perfect example is PSE Whitehorn came along and said, man, we need water. What are we going to do for potable water? And so the PUD was able to say they were required to come to the PUD because of the coordinated water system plan and the plan that you have and say, guys, this is your area. How can we work together to get water? And your response was very appropriate for the time and place that you're in. And that was, we have industrial water available. It's treated to a certain standard, which is a stepping stone from water out of the river to the customer. And you take a huge step forward with your industrial water supply already that would be incredibly expensive to start from scratch for an individual utility. So because I'll say you're a third to half of the way there already because of your existing supply, which includes water rights, which was key to Steve. And so the next step is the customer comes to you and say, here's what we're up against. And you have the opportunity to evaluate with that customer, what is the best for both parties, recognizing that you want to serve them, but you can work with them. So PSE Whitehorn, the short story was you had water available in the area, but you didn't have potable water, and the capital costs for not only the infrastructure, but also the human resource costs to ramp up another department that was qualified, not that you don't have qualified people, but to designate them for that level of service, the timing wasn't right. And so you ended up engaging with them in an agreement whereby they would make their own capital expense on site to develop a drinking water system that's small and just meets their needs, with the understanding that when you were ready and available to serve them potable water, you would change that relationship. And that's what this plan did. It really set the stage. And I think Brian could shake his head yes. It was a little awkward at first because you hadn't been through it in a long time, but in the end, it really served both parties well. And that's what the plan has done, is it set that stage for you to allow to work with parties that come along and come up with an appropriate a place in that plan. And that's where your water rights that Steve was talking about, the foundation and the water system plan created that framework. And what will come out of that as next steps, I mentioned earlier, and Brian would attest to that, is policy decisions or procedures for how you're going to handle more that come to your door, whether it's Grandview or in the Cherry Point. So that's how it all fits together. And that was an example of how it's starting to take shape and works.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
I don't understand that, Dave and Steve. I read this as this resolution is going to create a comprehensive drinking water system plan that will provide water that meets Washington State drinking water quality standards to the customer at the meter. And that's not what we're doing with Phillips or Alcoa. We're giving them a lower grade of water, which we call industrial. So whose responsibility will it fall upon once this resolution is adopted? Is it going to be our responsibility at the tap or just to the meter, and there it's up to the customer to decide what they're going to do with that water?
It's up to the customer to decide what they want to do with that water. We're not providing potable water, or we're not providing water that meets potable water standards to Phillips 66 or to Intelco or to any of the customers out at Cherry Point. It's up to them to decide what they want to do with that. And in the case of Phillips and in the case of Intelco, they have to, if they want to use our water to treat it further for their own potable needs, they have to develop their own water system plan that's approved by the Department of Health.
Okay, I'm just reading what it says here, and it says it's the responsibility of the district to provide the water that meets Washington State drinking water quality standards to the customer at the meter. We will not be meeting drinking water standards at the meter for those two customers.
Keep in mind that this water system plan, as it relates to potable water standards at the meter, is only for two areas of our service area. One is Grandview, where we provide potable water to meet those standards, and Praxair's well that we own and already meets water quality standards and potable standards. So this doesn't cover anything other than that. Now, at the same time, it gives us the authority to do that if we choose to do that. So if Phillips 66 would come to us, and I don't think that they will, because right now they've got their own system, but if they would come to us and say, look, we want you to provide potable water to us at a meter, then we'd have to look at building a potable water treatment plant at Cherry Point to do that, or to consider connecting, depending on the quantity, connecting to the Praxair well or some other source of supply. This doesn't change any of that. This doesn't give us it does not create a requirement for us to provide potable water to anybody other than the retail service area of Grandview and that Praxair plant.
So Mike, look at it this way. The Phillips 66 is not a potable customer of yours. You do not have a potable water meter to Phillips 66, like Steve described. You do have a potable water meter at Healthy Pat. The other half of that is Phillips, you provide a pipe from the river to Phillips 66 for them to do as they please with that. They are a source of water to the Phillips 66 potable plant, just like your well is a source of water to your house. So that's all that you're providing to them. They have not asked you for potable water, and you are not required to provide them potable water. They get the benefit that you've processed the water to a certain point to make their job easier inside the fence, but they are not a potable customer of yours. Therefore, this does not apply to them at this time.
That makes sense. I understand that. So thank you for explaining it that way. Thank you. Yes,
Here's another example. For many, many years, we supplied our industrial water to BP refinery. It went into an open air pond for them to take, and they did two things with that water. One, they moved it into their own potable treatment facility for use for potable standards for domestic use, and the other was to use the majority of into their processing for their refinery. Then they asked us to look at other opportunities. Birch Bay Water and Sewer District stepped up and said that they could supply water to BP. And for several years, we had an agreement where we would actually, because we did not want to change our service area out there. And so for several years, we had an agreement where we would buy the water from Birch Bay Water and Sewer District and at the meter, and then turn around and sell it to BP Refinery. Then BP Refinery came to Birch Bay Water and Sewer District and asked if they would take their domestic wastewater. Birch Bay Water and Sewer District said they would prefer to do both, directly sell potable water to BP Refinery and then take their domestic waste. And so we reached an agreement where they were, quote, allowed to move water into BP Refinery in our service area without compromising our authority or our ability to serve that same area. So I think that's another example of how it can work. So.
Okay, I remember that. Yeah, so thank you for that too. I'm done asking questions. I apologize for holding it up so long. If the commissioners will, I will make a motion to accept resolution 815.
I will second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we didn't hear you, Mike, but
Aye.
the motion carries. Thank you, Dave and Steve.
And commissioners, thank you. And another shout out to Dave and Kurt and Tom. I know Mortimer is not on the call today, but big thank you to him and to our new legal water right attorneys, our water right legal counsel, and the unnamed, all of our staff, our water system operator, chief operator, Devin Crabtree, and others. This has been a long but very fruitful process. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you, commissioners.
Great, let's move on to new business. And we have the approval of professional services agreement with Eagle Eye Aerial. Who's that going to be today? Brian?
That'll be me, commissioners. Good morning, commissioners. Several years ago, we decided to supplement our ground surveys, condition surveys of our transmission lines and structures with aerial overhead surveys. Initially, we used the helicopter. And then a few years ago, as the technology matured, we switched over to doing drone aerial surveys and found that to be a very successful way to survey our line and transmission structures safely, at less expense, and also faster than we could with an aerial survey. And so we've continued that process. What's before you today is we had a professional services agreement with Eagle Eye Aerial Solutions. They were providing that drone survey capability for us. Their professional services agreement, which is the enabling agreement for their work, lapsed. And we're asking today for a renewal of that agreement with a term that would extend through the end of 2023. I might also add that, since initially just doing the surveys of our transmission lines and structures. We've expanded the observations to include substations and also water facilities. It's just invaluable what we can do with that drone getting in close to the structures and really zeroing in on wear and damage and a need for replacement of equipment, et cetera. And so we're finding that it's just as invaluable in substations with taking an overhead view of equipment that we can't see the condition of from the ground. So here again, just asking for approval of this agreement. If the commission approves the agreement today, we anticipate we'll be coming back to you at the second meeting this month with a work order with a scope of work for survey of our facilities. We're also anticipating we're going to do something different this year that we've budgeted for, but it's not only just doing photos and video of our structures, but also doing a LiDAR survey, which is really a technology that, using lasers, we can get a very detailed profile of our transmission line structures and the ground topography. And it's particularly important this time around because we've just completed a round of basically transmission, the structures and pole replacement. And we've basically, the line alignment has changed. And so we need to check clearances between our lines in the ground, also our lines and Puget Sound Energy lines where we cross over or under them. So it's time to do another LiDAR survey. Previously, we did that with a helicopter. We now have that capability with the drone, the aerial platform. They now have LiDAR equipment that they can use in addition to their photo equipment. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions you might have.
Great. Commissioners, any questions for Brian?
No, just this must be dramatically reducing the cost of getting all of this data now, being able to rely on a drone to do it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Back when we were doing the ground surveys, we not only do our own, boots on the ground, looking up the structure observations by electric staff, but we would hire a line crew. Since we don't have bucket trucks, we don't have the capability to getting up high on those structures to view condition. And those bucket trucks, you'd come with a complete crew and they got expensive. We were running several $1,000s a structure, and we've got over 100 transmission structures between Cherry Point and Bellingham. So we've dramatically reduced the cost of those observations and increased the accuracy or the detailed analysis. It's gone up, tenfold, if you will. You can take a drone and you can get right in there close and really see what's going on even with a bucket truck with someone up in the air. You couldn't get as close to the lines or to the conductors or to the cross arms as you can with a drone. So it's been an eye opener. It's one of those wonderful uses of technology that you wonder why we weren't doing it sooner. But
Okay, if there's no other questions, I will entertain a motion to approve this professional services agreement.
I'll make that motion to approve the professional services agreement with Eagle Eye Aerial.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
thank you, commissioners.
Okay, we're moving on to the general manager report. Take it away, Chris.
So today, I really don't have too much to report other than I've started to meet with each of the three commissioners. I've met with legal staff, and I'm in the process of meeting with every employee here at the utility. And, result of that and our strategic planning initiative and everything else will be kind of a cogent path that I can articulate to you guys. But I'm not ready to do that today. So it's been a good first week, and I've really enjoyed being here, and I'm excited about the future.
Great. Well, unless there's some questions from my fellow commissioners, let's move on to commissioner reports. Commissioner Murphy, do you want to go first today?
Thank you, Christine. Every week I do attend on Zoom, the legislature update. That's very interesting what's going on. Very short, as you other commissioners know, and very intense and very busy. And anyhow, so it's good to keep up on top of those things. I know the two of you are too. I really appreciate that. I've been busy working on water, visiting different people out in the community, the county, trying to follow up on issues. Water is where my heart is because I born and raised here. I saw such an incredible change that I saw so much loss that I became involved as a commissioner. And I'm really pleased to see all the work that's been done by staff and Dave and others. So I'm looking forward to just keep working on the water issues, getting ready to meet with Chris and meeting with Steve too and others. So that's what I've been working on.
Great. Commissioner Deshmani?
So I attended a session titled "What is Adjudication and Why is it?" and why, and some of the details about it was put on by the Department of Ecology on Thursday evening. And I just wanted to share that I'm really waiting for the recording. I don't know if my colleagues were able to sit in and listen in it, but I've listened to several of Ecology's presentations on the adjudication over the last year. And this was by far the best, meaning the most informational, the least superlative. And I'm really looking forward to finding out when the recording is out. I don't know, Steve, if the recording's out yet. If it is, one of us can get it out to the group. I don't know if you attended it as well.
I did. I think that it'll be important to have a follow-up discussion with our legal counsel and Chris Heimgartner and to talk about what was said. I don't necessarily agree with your interpretation that it's the best that I've ever heard. But
and by the way, to the whole world, I defer to Steve on this point. I'm just talking about, I was really happy that they talked about some specific community issues, like how they will engage farmers, how they engage private well owners. So let me be more clear about what I was saying there. I don't know about the legal veracity. Sorry, please go ahead.
No, I just, we've gotten some comments from Matt Wells and Sarah Mack on their, they were in attendance at the meeting and they've got some comments, and I think we should follow up possibly even in an executive session to discuss the adjudication. So.
So, Steve, you think it's, are you saying it's potentially problematic for us to, there's enough stuff in there that's problematic that maybe we don't want to widely disseminate it as the gold standard for communication and adjudication? Is that what you're basically saying?
I think there are a couple of points that that came out in the presentation, and I think there's at least one question as to what they meant by that.
Okay.
And then the other is, they kept referring on, especially on the individual private wells. They said, well, more to come. This fall, we're going to have another one and talk about private wells. Well, Yeah, I just think that there's some questions that need to be raised, that's all.
Okay. In the broadband update, I referred to conversations I had had with Andrew and also someone who's given public comment at this at the PUD, who's been very involved with the local loops conversation is Jamie Douglas. I want to make sure I give a shout out to and acknowledgement of Jamie's efforts in helping to raise awareness in the community regarding local loop type opportunities. Then I also had the broadband, City of Bellingham's Broadband Advisory Group meeting on Tuesday, last Tuesday, February, let's see, on February 1st. Yeah, right. Our next one is March, I believe that'll be March 1st or something like that. Anyway, so that particular meeting marked the end of the survey by the City of Bellingham that was conducted in the City of Bellingham on broadband. And we're waiting for the tabulation of results. One of the things is that those results, because they provide address and location information, are being kept as for protecting the public's privacy private. So there will be tabulation of results. And we'll be getting reports on that in the near future. The group is now in the home stretch, meaning that the consultants starting to tabulate results, doing their analysis, has already presented some things about what are the potential palette of options for the City of Bellingham in terms of supporting the community and expanded broadband availability. I think the members of the telecom community that are on the advisory group very much are in favor of the following narrative as a whole, that the City of Bellingham has, I mean, all the homes and residents in Bellingham largely have the wires that they need. And the problem is access. And so there is also a significant desire, though, particularly among the non-telecom community members, to deal with issues of the economic aspect of the digital divide. I want to repeat again, we talk, because, you know, even the Whatcom PUD is more, it tends to be county oriented, has been certainly county oriented. We think about the geographic aspect of the digital divide. But there's also an economic aspect of the digital divide, which gets less conversation. And I think there's definitely a significant number of members of the broadband advisory group, including myself, who want to see attention being placed on the economic aspect. And one can argue that the preferable way to keep the telecom industry happy would be for the City of Bellingham to just subsidize access for the residents of Bellingham who can't afford the packages that are being offered. But there's also a significant desire to increase competitiveness within the city. So even though there's wires going by, because those wires are closed access rather than open access, there's not a dearth of competition, despite the fact that it's, you know, there's 13 providers in the City of Bellingham. But if they're all 13 essentially monopoly franchises in the areas that they serve, including partnerships with many cases, there are contractually binding agreements with building owners, which prevent or preclude competition. So this creates a problem, and maybe subsidization is a short-term solution, but eventually it creates a dependency rather than relying on the so-called free market. So So there's that exciting, fertile conversation that's going to be happening over the next 6 months about how to find common ground and something that will actually benefit the community. So.
I have a question for you, Commissioner Deshmani. So is there, with the broadband advisory group, is there a specific end date for the group when you will present your plan going forward? Or what's kind of the what's the end game that this group is working towards, and you know, when will we know when the group has been when will they present their final recommendations, and how will the city council decide what to do with those recommendations?
So I think the process of starting to produce results and identifying and developing the recommendations will probably start in the April to May timeframe.
Okay.
But the committee is done in September. So
Okay.
That's the window where things will start coming out as far as products of the group. As an advisory group, what it can do is advise the council. But on more than one occasion, the council has said, please don't give us an extensive menu. I think, and that's been heard loud and clearly in an advisory group, which kind of means that we're going to have to hash things out and make some solid recommendations. As a non-voting member, it will be up to the voting members to do the hashing out, obviously with input from the ex officio members like myself. And so we will see, but I think that nothing the advisory group does will mean anything as far as concrete action for the city.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think the only other thing that I just wanted to mention that there's a lot of other pieces to our water system besides the drinking water plan. There's the our water system, other water system plans would deal with industrial water. And I'm looking forward to hearing how our thinking and planning around industrial water and water rights is evolving as well. Obviously, this is the essential piece of us getting taking the next step. But I wanted to ask about when we're going to be getting more updates on those subjects too, that address more industrial water.
Yeah, right now, Commissioner, in regards to that, Rebecca has been working and I've joined in on that to develop a full, at least a couple hour presentation at our second commissioner meeting in March. So I think it's March 22nd, and I've had just a very, very brief discussion with Chris about that. And so right now that's our plan. So sort of an A to Z of where we are in terms of our water rights, our water, industrial water system, and some of the other areas that we've engaged in, like the grants from the Puget Sound Partnership. So looking at developing a presentation and discussion for that second meeting in March.
And then lastly, regarding energy, I had the wonderful opportunity to talk to Chris and share with him my wish list. Some of them hopefully semi-realistic, some of them fantasies. Chris, I am open to that. And
I would say highly aspirational.
Highly aspirational. Okay.
Not fancy.
So yeah, the comment was about ideas and yeah, we for sure we have a lot of good ideas, but that means in my case that I've got a lot more bad ideas, and so the question is not just dealing with the good ideas, but also filtering out all the bad ideas. But I recognize that most of us who have ideas, I have to be willing to tolerate our bad ideas so we can sift through and get to the good ones. So, but anyway, so I had a great chat with Chris last week about renewable energy aspirations, and look forward to sifting through those and figuring out what we can do. That's my report.
Thank you.
I should just say, I'm sorry, one last thing is WPUDA. We have WPUDA meetings, but that'll be we'll be able to discuss that and plans for that. I think at our next PUD meeting is the 22nd. So I guess I should bring to the commission if there's any divvying up or anything like that support commissioners want to ask for attending WPUDA meetings. But I'll attend the ones that I'm responsible for, and maybe sit in on telecom and energy too, like I have.
I will be able to sit in on the meetings I'm responsible for, the governance board and the Friday board meeting.
Okay.
And I'll be at all mine, and I'm planning to attend the Wednesday education session for a little while. So it sounds like we're all going to be good to go. Should I just, are you done with your report, Commissioner Deshmani? Okay, great, thank you. Well, I will start my report with a bit of good news, I think, from WPUDA, which is that I got a phone call from Nicholas Garcia, and he said, I feel like you are interested in demand response, Christine, and it seems like you, you know, as I shared in my last commissioner report from last week, was pretty disappointed with how WPUDA went from concerned to opposed on the building electrification bills, and feel like we haven't really given enough thought at WPUDA on the potential of demand response and load shaping and how we can electrify without seriously putting grid reliability at risk. And as I said before, you know, absolutely share concerns about grid reliability. And I think that's why demand response is so important. And so Nicholas said, you know, basically we hear you. And so at our next meeting, so our meetings next week, Nicholas is bringing in a demand response expert who will be sharing some information about demand response, and essentially just said, this is a topic that I'm committed to educating the Energy Committee on. And so I'll be having a phone call with the individual that will be presenting. I don't have his name off the top of my head right now, but it's someone that Nicholas worked with when he was at Tacoma Power. But I just think this is a really important step, kind of thinking through the next chapter in where we're going as electric utilities. And in my work with the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, really just saw how much further along other parts of the country are on demand response. And I think there's a lot we can learn here in the Northwest. So was just really happy to see WPUDA being responsive to some of my concerns and kind of building a positive relationship around that learning. So always good to share a success story. And you know, maybe you two can join the Energy Committee if you're interested in learning more next week. Also had a check-in with Chris on Thursday, and Steve joined as well, and that was great. Andrew and I had some check-ins, one check-in. We are a lot going on with broadband and getting those grants deployed in partnership with the port. So we have our broadband steering committee meeting on the 16th, and that will be Chris's first meeting with the broadband steering committee. And I am not sure if I've mentioned this, but County Council member Kaylee Galloway is really interested in broadband and kind of learning about what the Port PUD partnership has been doing on broadband, and will be joining that next steering committee meeting. Michael, Commissioner Shepard and I are still going to be the co-chairs. She will be kind of joining as a guest, but she wants to get up to speed and educated. And I think that that's wonderful, because it'll be great to have a champion on the county council that really understand some of the details of what we're trying to do, because it does get complicated. And then, as Andrew mentioned, I've really been pushing hard to get a press release out about what we have, our grant wins. And I think it's hard because there's this tendency to say, well, we want to have every little detail figured out before we make anything public. And I think that we need to, of course, keep ironing out our details with implementation, but also let the community know that, you know, we've won these grants and, you know, where we're planning to build in the coming months. So, I think that is, and then after this meeting, I will be meeting with Chris to, I roped Chris into presenting at Western with the Institute for Energy Studies speaker series. So Chris is going to be doing that on February 22nd, right after our commission meeting. And I know there's a lot of excitement in the community about that. And so I'm going to be meeting with Chris after this meeting today to watch that presentation and kind of learn a little bit more. Sounds like a similar conversation to the one that Commissioner Deshmani and Chris had. So, yeah, that's it for me.
I just have a question, Commissioner Grant, about, and I could ask Andrew this question too, but so you might be able to support, but the question is about how much of the money that the port has received has actually been spent.
Ooh, I don't know. I think very well. Andrew, are you still on?
I'm here.
Do you know the answer to that?
I don't believe they've spent or have been reimbursed from the funding agencies for any of the projects. I think they're in the design phase today. So we can get back to this team here on timelines for the build out of those already funded projects.
Yeah, I mean, so is it gonna be one capital? I mean, is it gonna be one budget that integrates all the funding sources, or will they be broken up into individual projects?
There's two different funding agencies for 3 total projects. One is the Community Economic Revitalization Board, and the other is the State Broadband Office. And how the port's managing their budget, I think we'll have to look at that internally. And Chris and I are getting together this week to go through a more thorough overview of where we are today with broadband, and we can come back with some more better comments for you.
As the plans emerge, the fact that, yeah, I assumed that it was very little, and that I kind of got a confirmation that was the main thing I was looking for. But then, yeah, I'm sure it's in the progress, figuring it out, how those work plans are happening and how the funds will be allocated and all that stuff. So look forward to those presentations at some point.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, anything else? If not, it looks like we are moving on to our public comment. So Anne, can you help facilitate?
At this time, I don't have any hands raised.
Great. Okay. So the next item on our agenda is our executive session. And Peter, do you have an estimate for what we think? Looks like we think it's going to take about 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's what the agenda reflects. And you should all have an invite that are going to be attending the executive session, I assume.
Okay, and no action is anticipated. So we will move into executive session and then come back and close out the meeting after we're done with our executive session.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in a few minutes in executive session.
Okay, we have just completed our executive session. There was no action. Anything else today for the good of the order? Okay, well, thank you all for joining the February 8th Whatcom County Public Utility District Commission meeting. The meeting is closed.